The world was a different place in 1949. The vinyl LP had only just been invented. There was no television in Australia. And you couldn't make an international phone call. But 1949 was also the dawn of the computer age, when there were only 3 computers in the whole world. And in November of that year, there was a 4th. It was called CSIRAC, and it was Australian.
This is the Computer CSIRAC. It was the first fully automatic electronic digital computer to be built in Australia.
Australia holds a previously unheralded place of honour in the history of computers. It turns out that CSIRO scientists, without knowing about work overseas, actually created one of the grandfathers of modern computers. For a brief shining moment, we were at the forefront of this technology, but then we gave it away and almost forgot we'd ever been there. Unlike the other early computers, the remarkable thing is that CSIRAC, all 7 tons of it, is still around today, as are many of the engineers who worked on it. Ron Bowles was one of them.
This was something you could see, something more physical, whereas so many things today, you've just got to take for granted what they do, whereas with this, you knew what it was, you saw, you could feel and touch it.
We knew we were in at the beginning of something wonderful. It had a noise and a buzz about it. It even had a smell about it. And although only operated quite slowly by comparison with today's computers, it was the wonder of the age.
It was the war that made computers possible. The development of radar needed a level of electronic sophistication and complex calculations that became impossible to do by hand. So engineers constructed the first computers. It took years to design and build them. The first went live in Cambridge in June 1948, followed by another in Manchester in April 1949. The Americans followed in August with BNAC. Only 3 months later, CSIRAC was switched on. 2 Sydney scientists, Maston Beard and Trevor Pearcey, had developed CSIRAC in isolation. Every piece was designed locally, every part built in Australia.
Before CSIRAC, a computer was a person, often a woman, who used a calculating machine which could calculate about 1 operation a second. CSIRAC was 1,000 times faster than that, so it was a supercomputer in its day. CSIRAC, though, had only 2K bytes of storage, it had less than 6K bytes of disk, and it worked at 0.001 megahertz. Whereas this computer could do, in less than half a minute, more computing than CSIRAC could do in the entire 15 years that it operated.
Incredibly, all of the software has survived intact. And now the old engineers are converting 50-year-old punch tape software into programs they can run on modern computers. Even the music that CSIRAC played is being recovered.
Computer music started in earnest in the mid-50s in America in AT&T Bell Labs, but this music, the music that was played with CSIRAC, actually predates that. This is a fair simulation of what it would have sounded like at the time. It's quite possible that the first music ever played by a computer was by CSIRAC.
By 1954, CSIRAC was already obsolete and moved to the University of Melbourne, where it worked until 1964. It was a homegrown achievement, and yet, after such a promising start in computing, we let it all slip away.
Well, there was a feeling in Australia at that time that our main future was as a primary production country, agriculture and to a certain extent mining. I think that went through the science and political culture of the time. One of the designers of the computer, Trevor Pearcey, was concerned all his life that Australia had let a great opportunity slip by.
For more than 30 years, CSIRAC had been in mothballs, a forgotten part of computer history. But it has now been restored, and next month, on its 50th birthday, it'll take pride of place at the new Melbourne Museum. a fitting tribute to a lonely vanguard of Australian computer history.
In